Hello, interwebs, and welcome to Close Up. I'm your co-host, Joe.
And I'm Ryan.
We've got another leisure list for you, which, for those of you who don't know, is just a potpourri of entertainment. We talk about anything and everything we've been watching lately that we haven't done full reviews or discussions about already. So, like I said, you can find just about anything here, so we try not to spoil anything too much for you. If we're talking about long-running things like TV shows, we just try to give overviews. But no major spoilers, definitely. So, with that said, these things usually go on a while. We are leisurely on our leisure lists. So let's get it kicked off here with my first one. I listened to an audio drama called Unseen, which is from Long Story Short Productions, who were the same ones that did Wolf 359 and what was it? 0 Hours was the other one I listened to. And I believe I talked about both of those on past leisure lists. But Unseen it was around 12 episodes, I think. It's set in it's an anthology series set in this magical universe where every story centers around a different protagonist, and they're all doing different things. Like, some protagonists are like magic cops, others are students, others are teachers, some are, the very first one was about a girl who worked in a magic shop, just selling things to people. So they're all different stories that take place around this universe, talk about their shared history from different perspectives. It was a fascinating series. All the individual episodes were really well done. They weren't fully voice character acted. It was one narrator per episode who just told the whole story, and I thought they were all well done, well written. Long Story Short Productions is really good for its witty, entertaining dialogue and narration style. Their stories are often thoughtful, and I think the stories did have a sense of magic and wonder to them. The shared rules I appreciated, the lore building between all of them. Sometimes certain stories would reference other stories, so it is helpful to listen to them in chronological order. But good series on the whole there. Another hit from that production studio. And it's short too. I don't think they're doing any more, but it was just a good anthology. Next up on my list, I'm doing 2-1 to Ryan today because he has fewer than I do. But next up on my list, I finished Silicon Valley Season 4. And my big takeaway is the main character, Richard, is just extra unlikable now. He's crossed some lines. He's just committing criminal acts left and right with an ends justify the means mentality. And at the beginning when he was doing that stuff, I can kind of get behind it even a little, because he's like, oh, he's the underdog, and sure, the big guys play dirty, so why can't the underdog play dirty? But he's found enough success now that he's just starting to become as bad as the big tech giants in Silicon Valley. He's becoming the very thing he swore to destroy. So I don't know if that's going to get bigger payoff later on, or if Richard's just destined to just be a dick for the rest of the show. I also find that the episodes are starting to get more repetitive at this point. Every episode, which I can appreciate from a screenwriting perspective, you want stuff. You want the stakes to always feel big, but at this point, every episode is like something awful happens that derails their plans for the whole season, and then they find a way out of it by the end, conveniently, usually. The consequences don't really last. But for a comedy show, the important thing is it's still funny. The insults specifically are legendary. I can start to feel it wearing a little bit thin by this point, but it's Silicon Valley, still good by season 4. I'll see what the next few seasons bring when I get to them. So, what you got?
I gotta get this one out of the way. It's probably on everybody's mind. I watched again and watched them fail again. The Maple Leafs playoff run. It's the same story every year.
Boston.
It sucked
first
a little
round.
bit. Boston first round.
How many times have I heard that one?
Fought back to Game 7. They were down 3-1. Fought all the way back. Scored first, and then a minute later, Boston scored, and then Pasternak on the opposite team just did the perfect play to beat him defensively, and I wasn't really surprised, if I'm going to be honest.
Are we ever surprised when the Leafs lose
No.
in round 1 to Boston?
Well, here's also the thing. And it doesn't even matter that Nylander on Toronto missed like the first 3 games, and then Matthews missed 2 of the other games late because they're both dealing with health issues, and those are 2
Boo-hoo,
best
it's playoffs.
scorers.
Suck it up.
Yeah. But this was the year I truly believe that they didn't deserve to win the series, just because I didn't feel like they wanted it in games 2 or 3. Or not game 2. Game 2 is when they won their first one, but games like 3 and 4, I didn't feel like they were hungry for it until they heard the backlash, and then they started to get better defensively, and scoring didn't change at all. They just did better defensively. They haven't scored more than 3 goals in the past 16 playoff games they've been in. So that needs to change, especially when you have the best goal scorer in the league, which is Austin Matthews. Yeah, it's just another, we'll get him next time. But I do, in my personal opinion, I think the coach needs to go. I think I've seen enough of his dump and chase routine to be like, okay, we need new strategies. It's not even them getting tougher or getting better defensemen. It's just, they just need new strategies or a strategy in order to get the puck into the offensive zone, because they just can't do it. They're not able to do it. They just keep trying to do this. Let's get over the red line, dump the puck in, and chase after it. And most of the time it doesn't work. And they have the guys who are skilled enough to do it, but it's just the defense reads it all the time now, because we're like the only team that fucking does it a lot. And it's just pee-wee hockey crap. And it's annoying. It sucks that they lost, especially after coming down from 3-1, but I don't think they were going to make it that far anyway. What's new?
I think
the
even
definition of insanity is thinking it's going to change, expecting it to change, and then it doesn't, and then over and over again. It's my favorite quote from Far Cry 3, and I use it all the time.
I think even
You were saying?
I think even the Leafs buy into that narrative at this point. They're like, oh, we're playing Boston in round 1. Well, we're done.
Kind of. Yeah.
I feel like even they are like, yeah, we know how this is going to go. And it impacts.
I mean, they
their
say
playing.
like opposite things. They say that they're frustrated with losing, and they say that they're trying their effort, but just watching the games, you can just tell when they want to give up, and it's just sad. It's sad.
Yeah. The Leafs are sad. Well, better luck next year, as we've been saying for 57 years.
Yep. There's always next year.
Yeah. Well, the other month I watched I, Tonya. You seen that one?
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the movie... What I liked about it was that going into it, I had some preconceived notions about the whole thing, like even just based on what I've heard about Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. So I like that the movie sets the record straight about what actually happened. The acting was excellent in it. Margot Robbie was great. but I appreciated that despite the subject matter, there was a good sense of humor throughout. Like the bad guys in these movies they're just idiots. They're not.
Yeah.
Like her husband and the other guy, they're not mastermind criminals like they think they are. They're just stupid guys who did a stupid thing and got a very promising skater into a lot of trouble for no good reason. They brought Tanya down, and she could have been great if she had the chance. But it's a sad movie for a real life story, but pretty entertaining throughout. Like I said, it's not a dour movie by any stretch. They have a good sense of humor carrying it. The actors all have good chemistry. Graphic scenes of abuse, didn't expect that. That was that was intense, but I like that she fought back, showed her character. Like, oh well, yeah, I'm gonna get abused by my husband a lot, but I'm not gonna take it. I'm gonna fight him back too.
Yeah.
But still stay in this relationship because, yeah, and her relationship with her mom too. That's all. It was well written, well acted, well done. Tanya's good. Glad I watched that one.
Yeah, I remember going into I, Tonya being like, why am I watching a movie about Tanya Harding and not Nancy Kerrigan? And then you watch the film, it's like, oh no, it just very much is just telling the truth of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good movie. I think everybody should watch it, especially for Margot Robbie and Sebastian Stan's acting.
Definitely. The other biopic I watched is 42. Been wanting to see that one for a very long time. To me, this movie is a testament to no matter how bad, what's the word I'm looking for?
Racism?
No, just more generally. Just like no matter how hard society stacks the deck against any particular group, merit always wins in the end. You can be so good at what you do that even the people trying to hold you down have to admit, okay, they're pretty good. So even though Jackie Robinson had everything against him that he possibly could, he still shows that he was more than worthy to be there, and that other black players were worthy to be there, but he was so good, he broke the barrier for the rest of them to come through. And it shows that sometimes all you need is that one just to get the ball rolling. And it's still as inspiring a story now as it probably was in the mid 40s when it happened. Harrison Ford's character is great too. I like that he's just this old team manager who's like, okay, I'm retiring anyway soon probably, so like I'm gonna try a thing and I don't care how much backlash I get for it. I'm doing it because I think it's right and because it'll be good for my team, and anyone that doesn't like it, tough. So
yeah.
But like with I, Tonya, I also appreciated that 42 had a pretty good sense of humor considering the serious subject matter as well. It's not just this dour movie about overcoming racism. It's like Jackie Robinson and everybody else. They're just people who want to play ball. Jackie's, he doesn't even really want to deal with the racism. He's like, I just want to play ball. Like, and the white team means I get more money for it. So like, that's my incentive. I'm not playing with the white boys because I want to. They get me more money, and I like playing ball, and I get to do it for a bigger crowd. And like, he's not doing it politically. He's not trying to make an inspirational statement or be a symbol. He's just advancing his career, and the inspiration happens to just be a byproduct of that. And other people try to maybe get that through his head. Like, okay, like, you know, what you're doing here is more than just a job, right? But I like how matter of fact he is. Like, he's not trying to be a symbol of anything. He's just doing what he's good at, and everyone takes notice. Like, the world takes notice of it. And Chadwick Boseman's incredible in it.
42, I saw when it came out, not in theaters though, but I watched with my family and I loved it. It's one of those sleeper biopics I think everybody should see. It's what got me into Chadwick Boseman.
Yep.
And when he was cast for Black Panther and Civil War, I was like, oh, that's the guy from 42. What a perfect choice.
Yeah.
It's phenomenally well done, just even also coming from a sports fan as well. The baseball scenes are really good. Harrison Ford is phenomenal. I think it's one of his best performances in the past decade. There's so much like character that he brings out in it. The humor is really good. The chemistry between him and Chadwick is amazing. A lot of the side characters are great. Alan Tudyk as like the racist baseball manager.
The one where they make them hold the bat so they don't have to touch hands.
Yeah, it's such a good movie. It's just a really inspirational tale of the man of who Jackie Robinson was and what he means not only baseball but just to American history. So I'm glad you saw it. Yeah, it's a great movie.
It's a great tale of Americana. It's like I said, it's a great story about overcoming adversity. It's just a good movie. It's a good story, even if it wasn't true. But the fact that it is makes it all the more powerful. I'm not a sports fan by any stretch, especially not baseball, but it did resonate with me.
Yeah, it's very good. Okay. Going back to the top of my list because I had to get rid of the Leafs playoffs. I played the Battlefront Classic Collection. It came out a couple months ago as a time of recording. And it's the same games. They're the same. I mean, it's not really much to get a bit of an HD graphics boost. I think I played Battlefront 2 more than Battlefront 1 in the collection because, I don't know, I grew up on 2 and not on 1. And there is some glitches, I'm not going to lie, with some of the multiplayer matches. But to me personally, like a lot of the times when I played it, I wasn't really playing it for the multiplayer. Like the going against like live people on the servers. And it does suck that there are glitches just from like a game that came out 20 years ago, right? It's just a port over how is there glitches. But the single player is still good. Oh, that is one thing that's kind of stupid. They took out, like, when you beat the single player or play the single player games for the second Battlefront game, they took out, like, the end cinematic for each mission for some reason.
What?
For, like, each mission. I don't know why that's not in there. I don't know if they fixed it. So that is strange. Galactic Conquest is the same. Instant Action's the same. The combat's all the same. So it's just, it's an HD upgrade. The only reason I bought it, I think, is because I got a loyalty discount from having Battlefront 2 beforehand. So, same game, a little bit differences here and there, but the controversies are there for a reason. I wouldn't be mad at people who are mad at it. But for people who are saying it's god awful, it's Star Wars fans, right? So they're just gonna be mad at everything that's slightly not positive.
So what's wrong with these people? They're like, just because there's a little bit of glitches, they're saying, "Oh, it's awful." I'm like, okay, so you're just saying the original game's awful, but that's what you're nostalgic about? Is that what I'm getting?
No, it's more as like they're saying, "Oh, it's awful because why was it so simple to play a multiplayer match back in 2008, and the fact that we can't even load into some servers day one or can't even get through a single match because people are floating or running around the screen." It's not the fact that the game's awful. It's not the nostalgic goggles. It's just whoever did the port over did a terrible job or didn't really take into effect how popular Battlefront 2 was. So the game itself runs fine, but it's just the server glitches for it.
I can't speak to the classic collection, but I did love the original games. I I, like you, played Battlefront 2 a lot more than 1. I owned 1. Never really played much of it because 2 was amazing. That was like, I think Battlefront 2, I'd argue that was my go-to childhood game. My brother and I would couch co-op that game all the time in the offline versus mode. I still remember some of the cheat codes by memory on the D-pad. I wonder if those work in the Classic Collection. I'm very curious if they ported those over too.
I don't know. I play on keyboard, so I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I don't really have much interest in the Classic Collection. I'll just play I don't really care about the multiplayer of it all, even though those were great games. Personally, I prefer them to just keep support going for the new Battlefront 2 because I love that game, and I'm sad that they dropped support for it, or if they'd continue that franchise because I think they have a great thing going there.
Yeah, they dropped support on that to work on Battlefield 2042, which didn't even last a month.
Yeah, what a waste. All right, so next up for me is this book here called The Texans by somebody. Who wrote this book? We will see. Editors of Time Life Books with text by David Nevin. Yeah. So it's one of those books where I'm just running down the shelf in this house because there's like hundreds of books in this house. Who knows what they're all about. So this is one. It's just a history of Texas State. And it's actually, I didn't know if I was going to be that interested in the history of Texas State, but this book is actually pretty riveting because I love the way it's told nearly like a story. This book is told basically from the founding of Texas to the Civil War. And in that time period, the main characters it talks about are Steve Austin, Sam Houston, and their antagonist, Santa Anna of Mexico, basically. So it's pretty cool. I like Steve Austin and Sam Houston. They both have their bits in the story. Like Steve Austin's father founded Texas, and then Sam Houston became more the leader afterwards. But for the whole time, they're basically fighting Santa Anna, and they kind of team up, and their power struggles in the early years of the state. Like the whole book is basically about those three guys and the wars they fought to make Texas an independent government that could thrive on its own, away from the United States and away from Mexico. It was a really good read. I quite liked it. Not, once again, I'm a Canadian. I don't know if I'd care about Texas State, but it was actually a really cool history. I have a lot of respect for Texas State now. So, good nonfiction book because it reads like history. Yeah, it's a really interesting nonfiction book because it reads like a narrative story sometimes. Next up, going to say watched, but it's another audio drama. Batman, The Audio Adventures, Season 1. This came out 4 years ago-ish, 4 or 5 years ago. It's got a great voice cast. It's Jeffrey Wright's Batman, for one thing. Rosario Dawson's Catwoman.
Hell yeah.
And then there's like a lot of SNL cast, like Kenan Thompson is Commissioner Gordon. I think Seth Meyers played somebody. I think John Leguizamo was the Riddler. I think Brent Spiner was the Joker. It's got a lot of good voice actors. The only one I didn't really like was Melissa Villaseñor. I think that's how as Robin. Because that one was weird because usually, like, okay, I understand female voice actors perform young boys, but she just sounded like a grown woman playing Robin, even though they still called him the boy one. I'm like, oh, they made Robin a woman in this one? Okay, whatever. That's a little.
Well, they messed up in not getting Tara Strong, who is just very famous for doing that.
Yeah,
in the
but then
first place.
they kept calling him the Boy Wonder, and I'm like, oh, so he is supposed to be a young boy, and oh, okay, that's a miscasting. But I thought it was really cool because most of the thing acts like a documentary, nearly like a Gotham news documentary about the Batman. It's like life and death in Gotham City, and every episode has 4 or 5 mini scenes with different characters in Gotham City doing, well, just Gotham stuff. Like, oh, we'll have Batman face off against Two-Face. We'll have Riddler talking to his secretary for a while. Miss Tuesday, she was great. She was one of my favorite parts about the series. She's just super sassy and doesn't give a crap. The Riddler's a maniac. We have like Two-Face versus the Penguin is another subplot of the series. The Joker is starting a massive plan that's going to come to fruition on Valentine's Day, Dark Purple Dawn. So Batman's like, okay, the Riddler broke out of Arkham, Two-Face and Penguin are about to start a mob war. The Joker's got something planned for Valentine's Day. Catwoman and Vicky Vale are working together to take down the corrupt Mayor Hill. Like, there's a lot that's going on, all in these little vignettes. And in the middle of each vignette, they have these public, like just these advertisements for stuff in Gotham City. One of my favorite running ones was the saga of Blabo the Birthday Clown, who can't find work because everyone in Gotham City assumes that clowns are bad. So he's like, okay, who am I to be a clown in Gotham City? Or the other one about, they make a little jingle about a PSA, like, if a cloud of gas is on its way, you should run the other way. They're like, that's the best we did. We spent how much money on this for run the other way? Just, there's a lot.
It's pretty good.
It's funny.
Pretty good jingle.
It's funny. It's well acted. It's there's like a PSA about scarecrow drugs too. Like tell your kids about scarecrow drugs. They're not cool. Like,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's got like this Silver Age camp vibe to it for most of it, which growing up on Batman 66 I really appreciate. It ties in decades of Batman lore together really well. The voice acting is good. I like the story, the dialogue, the characters feel right. Gotham City, as it should, comes alive as its own character. And it realizes that Batman's rogues gallery, like most of the show is Batman's rogues gallery just doing their plotting. Batman's in it less than they are. So the show knows that Batman's rogues gallery are even more interesting characters than he is. So like this is a show that it gets Batman. It gets that it's campy. It's not taking itself too seriously, and I look forward to listening to season 2.
Nice. Where do you listen to this? Like on Spotify or something? Apple Music?
They're everywhere. I was listening on Google Podcasts, but then they shut that down. So now my go-to,
Dang.
not a sponsor, but now my go-to podcasting app is Castbox.
Okay.
Find Close Up there and everywhere. It is on there,
Nice.
actually.
Good.
If I just show the screen, perhaps you can see. Just let me go on to my subscriptions. Give me a moment. Close Up is on the list there.
I see it.
You can see it. There, you can see it. Yeah, we're on there. That's your proof.
Oh,
all right,
man,
what's up
that's
next?
Funny. Okay, next up for me is it's funny because I had wanted this box set for so long because it's just a classic trilogy, and finally went on sale for like 20% off around the Amazon deal week or whatever, and I rewatched in 4K Back to the Future trilogy.
Whoa!
Amazing movies. Funny story about it. because when I first got the box set, I think I already told you about this. The first disc for the first movie just kept glitching, it kept juddering and stopping, and sometimes this happens with 4K discs. So I just did a. So I had to do a return thing and a replacement, and that came in actually like I think 2 days later, so it was pretty quick. It came in before I even returned the thing, which is kind of funny. Or it came in right after I returned it. But yeah, so rewatch these movies. They look beautiful in 4K, man. They look stunning. It's not one of those, and I think what makes it great about it, it doesn't look like it was made today, but it's just crisp. It's still got that nice 80s film vibe, and just from the opening, I love these movies. Even the third one, I'll defend the third one. It is weaker. I'll say it. It's weaker. It's the weaker of the three. If I was ever to do a rewatch again, I'd probably just watch 1 and 2. But I'm one of those people that's like, well, if I see 1 and 2, I have to watch the third. But no, it's just like a kind of fun, like, well, we went to the future. Now we got to go back to the past again. Past.
I'm a contrarian for Back to the Future because in many ways I'm not saying it's a better movie, but I like Part 3 more than Part 2 on rewatches. Because Part 2, when I'm rewatching the whole trilogy, the whole third act of Part 2 is just another perspective on the first Back to the Future ending. So when I'm watching the whole trilogy, I'm like, a third of Back to the Future Part 2 is like, it drags on trilogy rewatches. Part 3 is like, okay, it's a weaker movie all around, but it doesn't grate on me quite the same way. Back to the Future Part 2 is at its best when it's in the future bits, and that's like the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's just one of your Joe takes that I just can't agree with. So
I understand. I think Part 2 is a better movie. That's what I'm saying. Part 2 is a better movie. But Part 3, I like it more when I'm rewatching all three of them.
All right.
Especially back to back.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think, the storytelling for Part 1 and 2 is really well done. The acting's phenomenal. The sets are incredible. It's just that 80s magic that, is still one of the best trilogies that is out there. If you haven't seen it yet, are you born? Are you alive? Because you should have seen it by now.
At least see the first one.
But yeah.
2 and 3, you can. I love the trilogy. It's one of my all-time favorites, but you can leave 2 and 3. 1 tells a complete story.
Yeah.
If you have to see 1, watch the first one. But the trilogy is worth your time. And then play the Telltale game, because I think that's a great number 4. Like if you want more, the Telltale game was a good continuation for this Back to the Future fan. Right. Next up on my list is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I was a very big fan of Afterlife. I very much enjoyed that movie. I like how they took the lore of the old Ghostbusters, but sort of changed the tone. It's still comedic, but there's more dramatic and heartfelt elements to it as well. I think Afterlife it's arguably the best legacy sequel I've seen yet, because for the way it connected to the originals and paid them off and kept the story going respectfully, especially what they did with Harold Ramis. It was all very emotional to see how they handled that. So I was very much looking forward to Frozen Empire. And I think Frozen Empire delivered as well. The team's back in New York. It's got a decidedly more comedic feel to it again. Feels more like a classic Ghostbusters movie. It was a little overstuffed, the cast. There was a lot of people to keep track of. Sometimes the plot was like, okay, well, you guys could have fixed these problems sooner if you just talked to one another. Though that I understand that was kind of part of the point, was the family wasn't really communicating super well at this point. McKenna Grace should be a bigger star than she already is. She's phenomenal in these movies. She carries a lot of them, really. And I like that she got to do more with Dan Aykroyd in this one. The old Ghostbusters get a lot more to do than they did in Afterlife. So that was satisfying. So it satisfies nostalgia and also tells a good original Ghostbuster story with a new villain who was actually really intimidating but a little underused, personally. Just a lot of cool things in there, like McKenna Grace's character Phoebe, like she befriends a ghost, just like a regular ghost. I'm like, oh, this is kind of different for the franchise, just a regular ghost that she can talk to. That's weird. But I just quite enjoyed this movie. It's good. It's feel good fun that I think most of the family can enjoy, which you don't get too many movies like that anymore. It's a good nostalgic movie, but it's a decent adventure movie in its own right, which is a lot scarier than I thought it'd be too. It does lean more into comedy, but there were some genuinely intense and scary moments that I'm like, oh, like I'm actually frightened right now. I didn't expect this in a Ghostbusters movie. So yeah, some intense scenes, but it was well done on the whole.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't go see this movie. That's why there wasn't a review, because I admittedly don't care about the Ghostbusters. I don't know.
But if
it's
there's
not
something
one of those
strange
things
in
that
your neighborhood, who are you going to call?
I think the whole idea of Ghostbusters is really cool, but also I think just like Terminator, it should have stopped at 1 and 2. But like, I don't know. It's just one of those things I couldn't get into.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only one I haven't seen is the 2016 reboot, which I will eventually.
Don't.
I think it's good to see
waste your
movies
time.
but I think it's good to see
Don't do
movies
it.
that people say are bad.
Don't do it.
Just to get my own opinion on them.
Don't
just
do
to
it.
see, was it really? How are people ever supposed to find underrated classics if they never give movies that people said were bad a second chance? I'm not saying 2016 Ghostbusters is a modern classic.
Ghostbusters 2016 and you say it's an underrated classic, I'm quitting this podcast.
I've had worse takes, probably.
Like your Velma one?
Season 2 just came out, and
what did they do to my Hex girls?
And somehow I feel like it's going to be more faithful to Scooby-Doo, and it's going to be less funny because of it. My favorite thing about Velma is that, you know what? I won't talk about Velma this time. Wait for the next Leisure List, because it's probably going to be on that. Velma Season 2. I'll watch it so you don't have to. You can just hear me talk about it. I just heard Charlie Brown voices.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know it was. My next up was another one you didn't see, Monkey Man. That was it. Okay. The thing is, I liked it in the first half. It was cool because they set up a good mystery of, okay, but what is this fighting guy trying to do? Okay, he's looking for revenge against somebody for something, which we don't really find out right away. It kind of builds up, and he's infiltrating this club, working his way up through the ranks just to get in the perfect position to get at this guy. The first hour up to his assassination attempt, tense, cool, well shot, forces you to pay attention because it doesn't explain all the mystery up front. So you actually have to be like, okay, got to pay attention now. What's actually happening? Who is this guy? What is he trying to do? You can piece it together. And then the back half of the movie, the pacing just slows to a crawl. And nothing. It just didn't do much for me in the back half. The third act fight is really cool. A lot of great action sequences in that. I thought there was some really good choreography in there. One or two kills that I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty inventive. I'm impressed. But it started feeling more like a John Wick in a monkey mask. Like, okay, the John Wick influences are starting to get a bit much at this point. They even name dropped John Wick earlier on in the movie. When he buys his first gun, the guy's like, what do you think you are, John Wick something? I'm like, okay, so the movie had John Wick on its mind enough to reference it, obviously, so it's obviously intentional. But I thought it was... I just got to look up... Yeah, Dev Patel wrote and directed and starred in this movie, and as a debut, I think he did a really good job, and I look forward to seeing his future works. It's a smart action movie because he was weaving in social politics a lot as well. There's a lot to say about class and how the powerful, even if they start from the bottom, they get to the top, and then they gatekeep other people from trying to get powerful. It's like, well, you were poor once and you got powerful. Why aren't you letting me? So there's a lot of well executed themes in there and some decent action. Monkey Man was good. It was weird, but it was different. I enjoyed it.
All right. Next on my list is Ghost of Tsushima. It's been a game that's been out for a while. I've just started to get back into it because I was playing a different game that'll come up later because I had to do with a live event that was happening and it was very important. I've just liberated the first, not island, but the first part of Tsushima. I'm on to Act 2 right now. It's a phenomenal game. I mean, it's just like... not even just like the story, but the gameplay is great. There's actual, like the combat. I'm playing on normal right now, and the combat is still difficult. Like you'll run into enemies, and you have to switch stances in order to break their like stamina or blocking just to get a good strike in. And it's tough. I mean, and when they hit you, they hit you hard, and it's pretty crazy. But even all that, even if the story wasn't good, even if the combat wasn't great, the graphics, oh my god. Like, I've heard people talk about it's like playing a painting. It is. It's like playing a painting. Just the daytime effects are so good. Just the fields, when you get into like the colorful fields with all the different types of flowers, like red ones or yellow. It's beautiful colors. It looks so good. I wish I was playing it right now, but sadly I'm an adult and I have to do other things in my life. It's a great game. I can't wait to beat it. I just finally fully liberated the first area that you play in, so now I can finally move forward with the story and get more armor, and I'm excited for that because I wanted to move forward. I wanted to continue the story, but I wanted to make sure that everything was liberated first just to get out of the way in terms of like completionist type stuff, because I don't like moving forward knowing there's stuff I have to do later on. But yeah.
So what's your play style like? Because I heard the two main camps for role playing flavor are classic samurai. It's more honorable to fight in the open kind of thing, or more like a ninja. You fight from the shadows. You're stealthy, or
I kind of do a mixture of both, and honestly, really depends on my mood. If I'm being honest, I will try to do more stealthy because it is kind of, it's more satisfying to like take out an entire camp stealth wise. But if I fuck up and I get a whole horde on me, then I'll just go full on samurai. But that's kind of what I love about the game too, is that it allows you to play both play styles pretty easily. But yeah, I think that stealth is the way to go most of the time, but it doesn't hold you to the stealth play style.
Yeah. So I watched Split, finally.
Okay.
Took me a long time. It was intense. And James McAvoy and Anya Taylor-Joy, I didn't realize how small
She's
scale...
like a baby in that movie.
She's so young. Yeah. I didn't realize how small scale this movie was. The amount of plot they were able to pack in for basically just being two characters in a basement blew my mind. Okay, yeah, like there were the other girls too, but they weren't that important. Not really. Like they get separated from Anya Taylor-Joy fast enough that, like, okay, it's mostly just Anya Taylor-Joy and James McAvoy. James McAvoy in particular blew me away in this movie with how distinctly he plays the different personalities.
Yeah. He's a phenomenal actor.
This guy has 23 personalities and a potential 24th buried away inside his brain, and he plays all of them uniquely. It's a feat of acting to watch, but it's also just a good suspense movie. I don't want to call it horror exactly because I wasn't horrified, but I was tense and suspenseful for the duration. Was very well done. And I'm looking forward to watching Glass whenever I get a chance. Complete the trifecta. So after... Okay, not after anything. I watched Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4. It's one of my go-to comfort shows because I've seen all the Star Treks. And Lower Decks is made for Star Trek fans. Most of the humor is derived from poking fun at past episodes in the last 50 years of the franchise, or cliches about Star Trek, or just referencing to Star Trek. I honestly have no idea how funny Lower Decks is to someone who's never seen Star Trek, but to this Star Trek fan who's seen the last, nearly 60 years of the franchise, I guess it's 58 years, I've seen basically every episode of every show. That show is freaking hilarious to me.
It's like a lot of in-jokes.
The whole show's basically in-jokes. That's why I'm saying I don't know if it's actually funny whatsoever to people who haven't seen Star Trek. I think it'd be a good test for somebody who hasn't. But for me, it's freaking funny because it's poking fun at all the stuff that the last 58 years of the franchise have taken at face value. And we're on season 4, and I love the core 4 characters. They finally just got promoted from lower deckers to lieutenants. So now they're actually they're from the bottom of the barrel from the first 3 seasons, and now they're actually in command positions and have more responsibilities put on them, which is stressful because they're still lower grade command. But they've all progressed really nicely as characters. They're clearly in new phases of their life. And the show's ending next season, so I'm not sure where it's going to go. Oh. But like I said, it's my comfort show, and I find it really funny. And even in season 4, it's not just it doesn't make fun of Star Trek. It's a pastiche. It loves Star Trek just as much as its fans do, and it makes fun of the conventions of Star Trek, but it's also doing them at the same time. Like one of my favorite running gags on the show is about sentient robots who take over planets. Just like, world computers that run everything on a planet. Like Star Trek's done so many of those. Lower Decks has a whole prison set aside for those supercomputers that have been stopped, which is hilarious. And that's been an ongoing plot through the show, and it's a good show. I love Lower Decks. Looking forward to the final season next year.
All right. Well, this will be funny to you because I bought this with you here. I finally read it. Avatar, The Search.
All right.
It is the somewhat spoiler alert. It's the adventure that they go on to try and find Zuko and Azula's mom. Funny story when trying to buy this comic, because I was like, I need to buy a comic book at Comic-Con. Why shouldn't I? So I was like, Last Airbender comics. Saw the smaller version for The Promise and The Search, which was what I was told I needed to start off with. And I was like, I'll go and buy them later in the day because I don't want to carry those books around.
Yep.
Come back, and The Promise is there, but The Search, the smaller version, only the big hardcovers were there. And I was like, damn it, that sucks. I guess I'll spend a little more. But the guy who sold it to me felt kind of apologetic, but also was like, I'll give this guy a break. Took $5 off each book. So, pretty thankful for that. It's a great graphic book. Not only that, but the reason why this one's so big is because I'll try to exclaim from showing pictures because that could be a copyright strike. But they have these little infographs on the sides here.
Yeah.
So, and it's from, they do sort of like the kind of behind the scenes stuff of why they chose to do this here from both the creator of the comic book, but also the creators of the show that helped work on the comic books. And the story in this is actually pretty good. On just how and what happened to Zuko's mom. And it makes sense within the lore. It makes sense with her relationship to Ozai and to her kids, and Azula's, insanity is, played up even more here. She's even crazier than she was at the end of the show. At some part, it expands the world of, spirits and involves new characters that are referenced in later media for Avatar. And it's a really good read. It's amazing, and I can't wait to buy the next two comics at Fan Expo this year, because I want to do that, because it's going to be cheaper than buying them off of Amazon. But it's a good read for any Avatar fan, especially because it was like the one thing that wasn't answered at the end of the show, right? So
yeah. That's one I'll probably read eventually, for sure. It's at some point. Avatar has been more on my mind lately because of the new show and all. Be nice to get back into that world. So I watched Superbad. Is one of the movies I watched.
Oh yeah, you said for the first time, right?
Yeah.
See, that's wild to me. Like that's one of those movies like I grew up watching with my brother. But sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, see, that's the thing, is my mom hated comedy movies, so I never watched a lot of... She hates comedy and horror, so I never really watched much comedy or horror growing up. I have big pockets of stuff that I need to catch up on. See, most of the stuff on my leisure lists, if you'll notice, is stuff I'm experiencing for the first time. I don't really do many rewatches, so when I have movies like this, just assume it's for the first time I'm seeing it, most of the time. So yeah, Superbad. It's cringy. It's painful. But it's supposed to be. That kind of humor is hard for me to watch because I get strong secondhand embarrassment for the characters.
Uh-huh.
It's just a thing I suffer from. That high school awkward humor, but it's pretty funny. At the same time, the only thing I knew about that movie was references to McLovin, and now I get it because McLovin was the best part of that movie. McLovin and the cops.
Cops are amazing. Bill Hader and Seth Rogen are phenomenal.
Yeah, Bill Hader, Seth Rogen, and McLovin. That was a great subplot. The Michael Cera and Jonah Hill stuff was also funny. It was a good coming of age story. Just them going on this wild adventure to get like, okay, we just want to get booze for a party. And then everything that derails after that in their quest to get booze. And I like how most of it's set over one night. It's set all in the course of one day, just so it keeps the stakes tight. We need to get it for the party tonight, or else we won't impress Emma Stone. And so the stakes are there. The characters are awkward but relatable. They all have a good chemistry. The scenes are over the top without being stupidly unbelievable, or like it doesn't break my immersion. I'm like, okay, this is a lot, but it's still grounded enough. So yeah, good comedy movie there. I read
huge names now.
They weren't as big in 2007 for sure.
No, not back then, but this is like where they got their big break for a lot of them. Jonah Hill, not Seth Rogen, well, maybe a little bit Seth Rogen because he helped write it, but Seth Rogen, Michael Cera, Emma Stone, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Bill Hader, just like huge, giant names now, and this is like where it all started.
Yeah. Seth Rogen, I think Seth Rogen and Bill Hader were already a thing. Bill Hader was
on SNL.
And Seth Rogen had done Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah.
Already, which was... Mm-hmm. I don't know what he did between that and Superbad, but so I read this book as well, The Eye of Heaven by Clive Cussler and Russell Blake. This is another one just kind of sitting on the shelf. I can't even tell you, it's part of a series called The Fargo Adventures. I can't even tell you which one it is. It's definitely not the first one. Sam and Remy Fargo have clearly been on adventures before. Even the main villain is like, we've seen this guy before. I'm like, well, I haven't read that one, so let's see if I can figure it out. So, and it was good. It was good. I don't think it was, despite not having read the first ones, this is a standalone adventure which introduces its stakes, self-contained. You kind of just jump in on the world and the characters. You understand who they are, what they're about, what they do, what their adventure is. They're treasure hunters. They're just like Sam Fargo was just a really good inventor who sold his inventions, and now he's rich. So he and his wife just travel the world looking for old treasures, Indiana Jones or Nathan Drake style, or Lara Croft, whatever. Lara Croft, sorry, not Laura. It's
how fucking dare you?
Mispronounced.
I'm just kidding.
I noticed this book was written about 10 years ago, so there's a lot of quippy dialogue in the book, and I'm like, okay, I feel like that's overdone now, but it must have been cool at the time when it was written. I'm like, I'd appreciate this dialogue a lot more if Marvel hadn't burnt me out over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But it's I got through the book really fast. The characters are cool. The plot moves along quickly. It all comes together in the end. There's some really cool Indiana Jones like reveals of solving the puzzles and finding new crazy Aztec locations. They go on a bit of a globe-trotting adventure to put these pieces together. There's some action sequences, some cool tension. It's an easy, light read. Good adventure story about archaeologists / treasure hunting types. Just a fun book. Really, it didn't make me think too much or nothing, but I got through it quick. I enjoyed.
Nice. Sorry, I was laughing because like I was picturing you like picking up Harry Potter for the first time, but starting on Order of the Phoenix. So it's like, here's all this lore that you missed, and you're like, who's this Voldemort guy? Who are they talking about?
I'll figure it out.
Why is he so mad at him? Anyway, why is he going after a child? Anyway, but yeah. All right, next on my list, because I had watched or read The Search.
Actually, this is.
I was like,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just opening the book here and seeing. Okay, so it breaks down all the different books Clive Cussler's done. And under the Fargo Adventures, The Eye of Heaven's at the top of the list, and there's 4 beneath it, which leads me to believe that this is, in fact, number 5.
I think you fucked up, Joe.
Hey, I'm just reading what I see. I'm just picking random books out of the boxes and saying, you know what? Let's read it. They could be like that Texans book from the 80s. They could be like this one from 2014, and I got one more random one.
You should start reading the Percy Jackson books, but start on number 6. like,
They got to 6?
I think there's like 10.
Wow.
I think there's a lot of Percy Jackson books.
I only read like the first 3. I never finished that one.
Percy Jackson books are there? Oh, Jesus, there's 17. Good Lord. Never mind.
Well, I read
wait
the
a
first.
second. Oh, the original Percy Jackson Unlimited series features 6 books.
6 books.
But they're talking about the entire franchise. I was just talking about the Percy Jackson stuff.
Well, I read the first 3 or 4 of those, so I'm not weird for that one.
You're halfway.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the series that got me into Greek mythology. That like taught young me the basics of who the gods were.
Yeah. I don't know if I brought this up, but I watched like the first episode of the Percy Jackson show.
Yeah.
I just haven't watched the rest of it. Like, I just
Justin
didn't
actually-
even, I don't know.
Justin watched it all. He thought it was a decent adaptation.
I know it's probably good. And like the first episode that I watched, I was like, okay, so far it's pretty good. And even compared to the movie, like it's so much better than the show. But I don't know, just the main actor, it felt like he was phoning it in, like dramatically. And he's a great comedic actor because he was in that one Ryan Reynolds movie. But again, it's just one episode and I just need to continue. But I'm sure I'll pick it up at some point because I love Greek mythology and Percy Jackson should be done right. But
See, that's a weird one. The Percy Jackson show is weird to me because I notice I don't know who the show is playing itself towards, if not us, because it was our generation that grew up on Percy Jackson. But I just don't care, so I don't know how that show's
right
doing.
Like I don't care that much.
I'm like you're not making a Percy Jackson show for Gen Alpha. I don't think they give a crap whatsoever about that series. No. Millennials are too old for it.
They probably think it's millennial cringe or whatever they say. I don't know.
But it's not even for millennials. Is the fun? Millennials are too old for Percy Jackson. Alphas are too young. It's playing for Gen Zs like us, but I don't care about the show, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I want it to be good, just as someone who with nostalgia for it.
I've heard it's good.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. I've heard it's good. I haven't heard it's great, so that's why it's making me like not watch it right away. But I will get around to it. But yeah. Anyway, so because I read The Search, I was like, well, it's time for another rewatch of the series with with the original Avatar show. And I'm starting to watch it with a friend right now, and it's cool watching it like with them and seeing both our reactions. It's actually the first time in a while that I've watched the Great Divide episode. Probably the first time I ever watched it. And like just going into it, not hating it, it is the worst episode of the series. I can confidently say that. But it's oddly funny at weird moments. It's so strange because there's like this old man who's a guide, and then Aang has to take over because, not kidding, he breaks 3 of his limbs like in a fight. And then there's just one conversation that him and Aang are having, but he just stops talking and like passes out. So me and my friend were just laughing and we're like, someone check on the old man. Did he die? It's just really funny. Yeah. We just got up to season 2 of The Library with the when they face that big owl spirit. And so we're kind of, I guess, if you think about it, halfway through the show. Yeah. Best show of all time. I'll still say that, confidently say that. First season was great. Animation still holds up. Season 2 is great because Toph is here now, and Toph is one of the best side characters ever. I love how snarky and sarcastic she is. Every character is phenomenal in their own right on the team. Everybody's great. Just watched in that because we've been watching it in chunks where we're not doing it like nightly. We're doing it like we hang out and we watch like a shit ton of it.
Yeah.
Like we watched recently like the Zuko Alone episode, which is like a Clint Eastwood type thing. It's a really good episode. Watched, The Blind Bandit, which was Toph's introduction. So yeah, all phenomenal stuff. I didn't know this, but the voice actor for the general at the beginning of season 1, who was trying to force Aang into the Avatar state, do you know who that voice actor is?
I do not.
That is, I believe, let me make sure I'm getting his name right before I mess it up. Is Daniel Day Kim, the live action Ozai.
Really?
So that's pretty cool. Yeah. It's the same guy.
Then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's an interesting fact. Yeah. Really quick pick, but yeah. One of the best shows of all time.
Last time, I haven't seen Avatar probably since its original run, except the other month where my boss's daughter, who's like 10 years old, she was with us. Sometimes she comes to work with her dad, and she was just kind of hanging out in the office with us at coffee break, and she watches the worst shows. There's just like teen drama.
Paw Patrol?
Garbage. No, it's like teen drama garbage. She's like 10 years old. It's bad. So when she left the room to go take the dog out, and then Justin steals her phone because she's his little cousin. So he steals her phone and throws on Avatar instead. It's like, okay, when she comes back, make the kid watch a real show. So then
Smart.
I don't know if she did or not. She was gone for a long time, but Justin and I got hooked in it for like the pilot episode of Avatar, and we're like, this is good. This is actually good. So we watched most of the pilot and then went back to work. But that's the last time I've seen Avatar, and I enjoyed it.
It's a phenomenal show.
I've listened to more of The Shadow. I think it's season 2. I'm finished now. This is the first season with, or is it? I don't even know. I think I've talked about this before, actually. Bill Johnstone is firmly the Shadow now. Orson Welles is in the rearview mirror. And the show's experimenting a little bit more this year. I noticed the Shadow and Margot Lane, they're traveling a lot more around the Americas. They're staying less in their home base. They're more overtly a couple now. They call each other darling a lot. Like before, their relationship was pretty heavily implied but more ambiguous. Now it's more obvious that they're dating. I noticed that whereas before there was just one organ player who did all the music, now there's like a full-on orchestra for the music. It's gotten bigger, grandiose. And one big theme I noticed in this season is a lot of the bad guys were geniuses who could have helped the world with their gifts but waste their talents on evil. So that's a commonality between a lot of the stories. Not all of them are bangers by any means. There's a lot of ones where I'm like, right, yeah, that's it. It's just kind of a throwaway pulp adventure at the very worst. None of them are outright bad yet. They're just, that was kind of forgettable, but it was a cool pulp hero adventure. That's fine. But the most memorable ones are quite impressive what they're doing. The less formulaic ones, the ones that play with the convention, I really like what they do. because the Shadow's got really cool powers, and sometimes it can get super formulaic when he's just like, okay, and now I'm gonna tail people, and now I'm gonna like reveal myself to them, and but when they actually, I like the ones that don't even focus on the Shadow personally. I like the ones that focus more on the villains and what they're doing, and then the Shadow kind of creeps up halfway through to start his investigations and stop them. Or ones that even focus more on Margot Lane, kind of doing a lot of the stuff for the Shadow. There's a lot of interesting stories. It's getting more sci-fi, I noticed. A lot more mad science and whatnot. So another movie I watched recently was Civil War, which has been getting controversy for stupid reasons.
Continue.
It's stupid. People think it's a political movie, so Republicans and Democrats are both like, it's woke, it's not woke, it's political, it's so political, and I'm like, okay,
before you say anything, I'm going to assume the point of the movie was making fun of those people, or a good heavy theme of it.
The point of the movie is a scene it's not the point, but Kirsten Dunst makes a point at some point in the movie that the entire job of these war photographers isn't to be biased. They're not telling you the story. They're capturing the story as it happens, and they show the pictures to the public so that they can form their own opinions. It's more objective journalism. They're not telling you what to think. They're showing you what's happening and saying, come to your own conclusions about it. That's what the movie's telling me is the point, and that's what I see while watching the movie. They're just showing me a lot of stuff happening, and it's up to your interpretation how you see that. The movies, which is kind of a strength and a flaw of the movie, because it doesn't have a clear direction. It's just trying to show you all this imagery about an American Civil War and making you say, well, who's at fault here, and how bad is this really, and whose side would I be on, who do I agree with more? Well, there's a lot of evidence in there for you to pick a side, but the movie's not picking a side, which sometimes makes it feel a little, I don't want to say meandering, but there is somewhat of a lack of focus that way, lore-wise, but that's fine, because it's, like I said, because that's a part of the idea of what they're going for. They're trying to show what photojournalism's all about, and the action in the movie's stunning, especially the third act, Assault on Washington, D.C. Big scale, tank battles, lots of practical effects, like camera running through the action, like that's great stuff. Or when they're being held hostage by, like every time they run into danger, it feels real, like anyone could die here at any time. You feel how brave these people are for taking the pictures just to document these things. It gave me an incredible appreciation for war photographers. Like, how, like, you don't always think about the guy behind the camera when you see amazing shots of warfare. You're just like, wow, that's a stunning picture of warfare. Like it just came out of nowhere. But somebody had to put themselves in the thick of that to bring those images back home so we can see what it's all about here. And that's what the movie's all about in a fictitious American Civil War. Which, yeah, it's Kirsten Dunst's character. She's kind of on the decline with her job. She's seen too many things, and she's gotten really cynical about the effect of her job. Like there's a very powerful scene later on where she's basically saying, well, I went to these other countries and put myself in danger to show the American public these things so that they'd know better than what we're getting here. And that's a large part of it in her mind is like, okay, how did an American Civil War where we're fighting each other happen when my whole job was to show people the horrors of war so they wouldn't want to bother with it? So she kind of feels like a failure that way, even though she's an award-winning photographer. She's doing her job well. But the other main interesting character is the young upstart who's super into war photography, and she's tagging along with these photographers on their mission, which, to be clear, their mission is the president is surrounded in Washington, D.C. and going to get assassinated. And they're like, we got to get a quote from the president before he dies because reporters aren't allowed in D.C., but we're going to do our best because the soldiers aren't going to show him any mercy, but I want to get a quote from the president before he's killed because that'll make a great story. And that's what Civil War is about. It's a road trip from New York to Washington, D.C. and facing the dangers along the way. It's a pretty gripping movie. A lot of cool scenes, good acting, great action, good themes. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, there's a couple of A24 movies that I wanted to see that came out recently, but just haven't gotten around to it. It was that I keep talking about Love Lies Bleeding.
Yes. Well, I do recommend Civil War.
Cool. All right.
It had a good effect.
Next one on me is Fortnite. Now, hold on. Hold on. Everybody calm down. I was enthralled with this game for about 2 weeks straight, like going in every night, only because there was a Last Airbender live event where there was a Zuko skin, Toph skin, Katara, and an Aang skin you had to earn during the live event. Purchased all that, played it, and the reason that it took me 2 weeks is because you had to unlock chakras, or you had to do these challenges to unlock a chakra that would end up after 6 weeks so you could earn a Appa glider. So I grinded the shit out of that because I was like, yes, favorite franchise of all time, and one of the games that I do play with a couple buddies now and then. Cool to play with. And it was a fun live event. You got to use like the elements as weapons, as mythic weapons in the game. A lot of them were really strong. Waterbending was overpowered. You could shoot people with ice from like 250 meters away, which is ridiculous. The airbending was a good traversal. It was like a free traversal. Is some of the best weapons you played. Some of the like items you would earn throughout the live event wasn't that great. I mean, it was mostly emotes and stuff. I wish there was like a gun skin, or there was an emote where you could turn Aang from his normal self into his avatar state self, but sadly there isn't. There was this core skin too that came with the battle pass that you had to earn through those challenges as well. That was fun. Yeah, that's basically why I played it. Cool skins, cool live event.
I've heard that
not as good as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle live event though. That one was really good. It came out a few months ago.
I heard the Avatar live event was weird for Fortnite because they do the powers so well. It's nearly a better Avatar game than an Avatar game would be.
Yeah, like one that came out recently. Yeah.
There's one that came out recently? I hadn't heard about that one.
There was one that came out recently, and it wasn't a AAA game, but it was so poorly reviewed that people just didn't bother playing it.
Well, I never even heard about that one. Well, I watched Alien in theaters for the 45th anniversary.
Nice.
That's another one I hadn't seen before, so I figured, well, seeing it for the first time, let's see it in theaters. And it was... I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. I was a little disappointed. It's very...
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's very, very well done, but it just didn't resonate with me on a personal level. Ridley Scott's directing is very impressive, even for 45 years ago. This is one of his first movies. The visual techniques he uses to create tension are very effective. Multiple scenes. I was scary. When's it gonna come out? I'm freaked out here.
The cat scene.
The cat scene was one of them. Well, which one are you referring to? Because there was a few cat scenes.
I don't know. All I know is seeing a clip of cat, and I think it's the same one. It's like an orange cat, and it's like a guy getting eaten off screen. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen the movie.
There was one scene when Sigourney Weaver's looking for the cat, and there's another scene where one of the other characters is looking for the cat, and that one was way more scary for me. Where he's just kind of like walking through the bay with this equipment. He's like getting dripped on. There's all this water falling from the ceiling. And all these chains. And he's calling for the cat. And the alien's in there waiting for him somewhere.
I think that's the one. The one that chains. The chains, it did something to my brain.
The chains ones. That was the most intense scene in the movie. Sigourney Weaver was surprisingly wooden in it. I wasn't that impressed with her in this one. Although she did get better as it went, as the crew got thinned out and she had more screen time. I'm like, okay, you're getting better now. I really like the sci-fi aesthetic of it. I love the 70s sci-fi look. The production design is great. The sound design is masterfully done for Alien. The alien itself was scary. The prosthetics, the creature designs were really good. The pacing was a little off in the first 15 minutes. It took a while to get going, personally. But once they hit the alien planet, I thought the pacing kept at a decent rate till the end. So Alien was... Maybe I hyped it up too much in my head. But, okay, one thing I really loved about it, though, is that compared to modern movies, one alien terrorizing, like, a crew of half a dozen was good enough, and it's still effective. Nowadays, we need an army of aliens against an army of humans, and we still call that a horror movie. Like, what happened in the days when one alien was scary? And it still is. It's still scarier.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that because I haven't seen Alien yet, but then after when we did our review of Prey, I saw the first Predator movie for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I had like the same feeling you did. I felt it was really overhyped. And I thought like most of it was kind of cheesy, especially comparing it to Prey.
I still need to see Predator.
But however, the third act was really cool. Like the final confrontation was really cool. But yeah, haven't seen Alien at all, but it's like one of those things where you see the like important clips over time, but I haven't seen it fully through.
The chest bursting
I know some funny
scene was
behind the
everything.
stage stories from it, but yeah.
Oh yeah, the chest bursting scene was everything you could
apparently
hope for.
Yeah, apparently in that scene only John Hurt knew that was going to happen. So like all the actors' reactions are real, so that's why
perfect.
They're like screaming their lungs out.
Perfect. I also watched...
Even when he was younger, Ridley Scott was up to his old tricks.
Yeah, I'm probably going to binge watch a lot of the Alien movies, because there was a new one coming out this year. The showing I saw in theaters had a 15-minute featurette between Ridley Scott and the director of the newest one, talking about the original.
Huh. What's the new one called?
I don't remember. Alien something 2024.
Alien 2024.
Alien something. Yeah. So at my boss's recommendation, nay, insistence, I also watched the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen on streaming.
Sorry, you ready for this? Alien Romulus.
Romulus.
Is that a reference? Is that a reference to something? I don't even know.
No idea. There's a planet Romulus on Star Trek. But
Romulus was a legendary founder and the first king of Rome. Cool.
That too.
Never heard of him.
my pop culture knowledge goes back 50 years, not 1,000 as much.
Not 1,000.
My Roman history is subpar.
I saw this really bad clip, not to derail us too much, but there was a clip. It was like someone gave Jennifer Lopez a book that's like a bad rom-com movie. And it's like, this is a first edition. This must have cost you hundreds. And it's the Iliad. It's like, there's no shot that that's a first edition. Like, there's no shot that that is a first edition book.
Yeah, that would mean it's a 2,000-year-old book. But
I think you would touch it and it would crumble. I don't think it would survive.
okay, this wasn't on my list actually, but now that we're talking about ancient history, I remember that I watched Spartacus.
Ah,
I just didn't write it down. The original Spartacus.
Nice.
With Kirk Douglas, directed by Stanley Kubrick.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another one
by Dalton Trumbo. Oh. Anyway, sorry.
And that was another one I was a little disappointed in. It was just okay. What I'll say is it starts off very strong, and then Spartacus starts leading his slave rebellion, and then he got boring. Like, as soon as he's not a slave anymore and he becomes the leader of the rebellion, he doesn't do a heck of a lot. Because he's just doing his thing. And he doesn't really have any inner conflict or anything else going on, really. It's just, so easy for him. The movie makes it seem like. What I got really interested in by that point was the Romans. Just the main antagonist, just this scheming Roman bastard who's trying to politic his way into a dictatorship of the Roman Senate. The Roman politics with all the bad guys were fascinating to me, seeing how they're trying to outmaneuver Spartacus and each other. And Spartacus was just, okay. I get why you're the main source of conflict for these people, but you're the least interesting character in your own movie. Mind you, Kirk Douglas plays him very well, but Laurence Olivier's villain is the real star of the show in that one. The action
After these
sequence,
reviews, I'm starting to notice a trend with you that you like side characters more than main characters.
I like well done side characters, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's also because it comes down to, well, I'm off on a side tangent, but it's also what I like to play when I do acting. I don't like being main characters. I remember even in high school drama, a lot, everyone would audition for the main characters, and I was always like, no. And then I'd still get a whole lot of praise after the show was done because I played the side character so well. I did, people were like, "Oh yeah, you're a good actor in class. You should be the main character." And I'm like, "No, I will not do that." In fact, we did West Side Story, I was Riff because I'm like, Riff is so much more interesting than Tony. I don't give a shit about Tony. He can do his thing He can do his thing with Maria all he wants. That's why I remember Mike Faced, but I don't even remember what Ansel Elgort was that. See, I don't know. I don't care.
What's the line in that Tick Tick Boom song where it's like he played Doc who couldn't sing fine with him? It was something like that. I think that's what it was. And the Andrew shit. And in his big song, the Tick Tick Boom song. Fuck. I think it's called Why. That's not what I don't know. It's when he's playing on the piano and he's like, I can't say without singing it, and I'm not going to do it. But I mean, I can do it, but I'm not going to do it here. Anyway, sorry.
So yeah, that's my thing about side characters. I think I like side characters because I like well done side characters because main characters are just, I know what main characters are all about. They're egocentric. They're about me, and everyone revolves around me. And side characters who are played by really good actors are the scene stealers. Most of the time, I'm like, I nearly rather see a story about you because main characters can be so white bread. Okay, you're full of cliches and tropes, and I know what your main character energy is, but this side character, this is interesting. And Spartacus is okay, you were cool when you were an underdog, and now, I mean, yeah, you're still an underdog, But now that you're the leader of the rebellion, I'm like, okay, that's all you got going on right now. The Roman plotting is way cooler. So, but the action is decent when there is action. The gladiator fights are cool. It's got a great ending. It pays off nicely.
Good.
The acting's good. I love seeing the epicness of the scale, all the extras, the landscapes. They don't make epics like they did in the 60s.
No.
Those movies they just look great.
Because they were there.
I also feel like you can't even do it nowadays because so many places are just developed over. There's like double the Earth's population now. So the stuff they were making back then was closer to actual Roman times than that same landscape probably is today.
It's probably at McDonald's over there where they filmed last time.
Yeah, like the world's just too developed now to do movies like that. So I'm glad we have them as a time capsule. So what's your next?
My next one is Helldivers 2. It's the game everyone's talking about.
You're in on that too, huh?
Fighting for democracy. You fight for Super Earth. You go down to a planet, kill a bunch of bugs or robots. And I was kind of forced into it, okay? I was forced into it by people at work. And I had massive FOMO the whole time. And I played like a few hours of it, had lots of fun. I haven't really picked up on it since, but it's just another fun live service game you can play. It's really funny, some of the voice lines that the characters say. I'm not as obsessed with it with other games right now, but every time I log on and play, I have a blast. The battle pass you do get, the initial one is for free, and then you can work up credits like by working through the initial battle pass to get the good ones, or the pay for battle passes. So that's good. $50 game, which was good. I kind of got at a discount because I sold a gun that I had for CS:GO for like $30, so I only got it for like $20. So that was cool. The controversy for it is over now. There used to be a controversy like a couple days ago where Sony made PC players have to link their Steam account to a PlayStation account, which doesn't sound that bad in hindsight, but there are some like territories in the world or countries that just don't have access to Sony like accounts or like their servers, so it really limited their player base. But now I just read recently today that is no longer a thing. So, or they've stopped making that a have to. So that's good. And the developers were really pissed about it because apparently it was a Sony decision and they didn't even ask them to do it. But yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, just, that's it.
Helldivers is all my friends are playing that except me. I can't do games like that. Games that my back catalog for single player games is so vast. I can't in good conscience spend my time on games that never end. Just games that you're effectively just doing for the skill building of it, doing rounds over and over. You could play Helldivers forever. I can't do that with too many games in my backlog. Maybe one day I'll be that kind of gamer, but not that those games aren't appealing to me.
I wouldn't implore you to do it. Like, it's not a... It's
not
a
that
huge
those
time
games
cruncher.
aren't... Yeah, not that they aren't appealing. I mean, I like the idea of getting good at live service multiplayer games, but my priorities as a gamer are not that. So another random book I read is The Atlas of Maritime History by Richard Natkiel and Anthony Preston. This one is pretty insane because it's effectively a book of world history told from like around Roman times to the 80s when it was made, but all told through seafaring effectively, mostly wars. About mostly wars and trade booms and colonialism and wars, and just the history of the sea tells the history of the world effectively. And it's just crazy to see how naval warfare evolved over thousands of years. Originally, it seems like technology was the big thing, because just based on the maps and charts, they have maps and charts of how every battle that they talk, like every major battle in seafaring history, they've got the charts to show how the ships moved. And it seems like a lot of it was just kind of whoever got the element of surprise used to win, unless your technology was better. So then the technologies got better. And then it wasn't around until like the 18th, the 19th and 20th centuries where, okay, technology's gotten pretty good, so maybe let's focus on strategies now, even though technology was still super important. It doesn't seem like strategy got a really good uptick until the 20th century for naval warfare. And like U-boats were a big thing as well. The submarines really changed the game
understatement.
there. Yep. They're cheating. Submarines are cheating.
That's literally what it was. Fucking Germans. Anyway.
I mean, we all had them, but it was the Germans that are known for it mostly. It was a bit of a repetitive read. I got through the whole thing, but it wasn't fast. Because like I said, it's basically a tome of 2,000 years of world history. There's a lot of information packed in here.
History.
But yeah, I don't know if most of it stuck, but I think I did learn a couple things anyway. Yeah, it was all right. I think I'll keep it just as a reference guide, if anything. Just like, okay, so what happened in this time and place, and what was going on here? What was the important trade? Who was the dominant sea power? It's pretty much always Britain.
Yeah.
For the last 2,000 years, it's pretty much always been... Actually, no, that's not true. It's since the 1600s. They're like, okay, the British used to kind of suck or be on equal footing with everyone else. And then they lost a few wars and got pissed off and were like, we need to rebuild the Navy from the ground up. And they've been on top ever since, just about.
Didn't France have they had a decent Navy for a while, right? Or am I like not as good as Britain?
Or
they just had a lot of ships or something. I don't know.
Not as good as Britain. They were okay. Like one of the best. I remember in this book it talked about in the Napoleonic Wars that they just they crushed France's navy.
Oh right, yeah.
And that's a large part of what screwed them. Basically, a large part of the argument of this book is that don't discount the Navy because they're the ones who control trade and shipping. They can starve you out. They can destroy most of your supply runs coming in, because as much as planes can do, ships still transport a great deal of the goods and services you use. So don't mess with ships. And don't discount a good Navy. All the militaries keep putting their stuff into ground warfare and Air Force, but they're like, Soviets are building up their military at the time of this book. They're like, Americans need to pour money into Navy. That's important.
It's a good chunk of the planet.
Yeah, that too. So at the strong suggestion of my boss, I watched the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is famously...
The movie?
Yeah, which is famously not good. But, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, fine. I've always been curious. Let's try. And it wasn't good. But I appreciate...
That has to be a clip.
But there are some things I appreciate about it. Sean Connery's great. And the practical action is cool in a turn your brain off kind of way. The vibe is great. I love like how they combine all these literary characters into one world. Like, yeah, this is a cool vibe. I can get behind this. The concept is so cool. There's a few twists in there which should have been obvious, but somehow got me. It's a pretty fun movie throughout, but like the editing is nonsensical. You can't really tell what's going on. The plot, there's so many holes in it. The pacing's all off. The dialogue's bad. It's not good. Though, once again, I also appreciate how they have so many literary references in there. I'm like, I need to read more classic literature, obviously, because there were some things I did understand and other things I'm like, that's a reference I don't get, but I probably should. It's littered with references.
I'm pretty sure this is the movie that made Sean Connery quit acting for a little bit. This is the movie that made him retire.
Yeah. I think the concept is great and could use a remake as a miniseries. I think a movie's way too short to tell this plot effectively. They squished so much plot into a short, into a 2-hour movie, and I'm like, that was a bad idea.
Yeah, you can't do an Alan Moore project justice in just 2 hours. Like, you gotta.
Yeah. It's
unless
so
it's
over
that
the
one Justice League episode, but
it's so over the top, and there's so much wrong with it. The CGI is awful. So much. It's just not. Yeah, it's not that
the Invisible
well
Man
made.
effects are kind of decent for
The effects
2003.
The CGI is bad, but the practical effects are good.
Yeah.
Some of the production design's cool. Captain Nemo's boats and car, I like that stuff. Some of the costumes, but just, yeah, like I'm glad I watched it just to see. It's fun if you don't think about it too much. If you're just like, it's a background movie, like I just watch it. And it sucks because it started off okay, and then I'm like, okay. It got worse as it went.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
Yeah.
When like you're told you're watching a bad movie and then it's like starting off good and they're like, I don't know what everyone's talking about, and then it's just like, oh no, oh now I know, oh it's getting worse, oh no, and it's it never goes back up.
Yeah, that was my journey on this one, on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I'm glad I tried it. Yeah.
Well. All right. Well.
And I need to read more classic literature. If anything, that's what this movie convinces me of. I need to read more.
Speaking of classic literature, let me take this brick. I finally was able to cop one.
War and Peace. Invincible.
Did you say War and Peace? That'd be pretty funny. But yeah, I finally was able to cop one. I got like a bonus at work, so I was like, "Fuck it!" Finally was able to get one under $100.
I was gonna say you didn't pay for the $250 one, right?
God no, I would have killed myself. Yeah, I've only read like the first 5 issues of it because I just got it last week. Pretty good, pretty faithful so far. Faithful, it's the original. What am I talking about? The show, from what I've read so far, is pretty faithful, which is kind of interesting. There is a lot of changes, but that the show does, but the show more so just like expands it, or just like builds off of the like building blocks of what this is, and which is what it should do as a show. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun, and first few issues, you're still into that like Mark's training to be a superhero. There is some things in here that are from the show that, or what am I saying? I don't know what I'm saying anymore. But like the first season of the show, I can see is a lot taken from this book very faithfully. Titan's in it quite a bit. I've just even seen on like the first page of issue 6 is Mark and Omni-Man playing baseball from across the planet, or throwing the baseball across the planets. It's really cool. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff. It's funny because I don't want to do spoilers for the show, but it's like there's stuff that happens in the show that they tell you right away, but in the book they don't yet, or in the comic, which I like. And I like that they did it in the show because it adds its tension in the show. But there's stuff in the book that it's like, and I'm not talking about like the big, huge twist at the end of episode 1. Talking about like stuff that happens like with the Flaxen invasion and what happens with Omni-Man when he leaves. We don't know what happens yet. So that's the stuff I like. So yeah, pretty excited. It's the omnibus, so it's the first 47 issues of the show, and then I'm going to buy the other 2 later on. There's 3 in full. It's heavy, man. It's fucking heavy. Yeah. I couldn't imagine like buying this at Comic-Con and being like, oh, just like walking around with
all day
this carrying down on my back. But yeah, happy that I will be able to read the comics, because it's not that I want to spoil myself for the show, but it's just I'm loving Invincible. I love season 1 and 2. I just want to see more of it. And I think that's what the show was trying to do in the first place. So, yeah. Oh my God. That's so heavy.
So don't... I ignore what I said earlier about this, because this isn't the first time I've watched this, mind you, but it's the first time I've watched this in 20 years, probably. I went to the theaters and saw The Mummy 25th anniversary re-release.
25th. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I probably haven't seen it since 2006, so it's probably been about 18 years since I've rewatched this movie. So this is the first time as an adult I'm seeing it.
Weirdly enough, I've seen The Mummy. I think I've seen The Mummy Returns more than The Mummy, because of just like reruns on cable at night. It would just always be a movie on at night.
I know
I've seen The Mummy quite a few times.
See, it's weird because I don't remember The Mummy Returns at all. I remember the first one as a kid. I even remember Scorpion King, because even as a kid, the CGI on the Rock's face is just ingrained in my memory as a mid 2000s child. That's just, it's something.
I actually like the Scorpion King movie. It's a weird it's a weird one, but it's kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah, so I remember the Scorpion King. I remember the original, but I don't remember The Mummy Returns at all. Need to give that a rewatch now, because this is a great movie. They don't make adventure movies like this anymore. Like, you can tell it's definitely inspired by Indiana Jones, but it's not Indiana Jones. It's doing its own thing. Brendan Fraser is he's more mercenary than Indy. Indy's very driven by, gotta put this in a museum. I'm doing it for archaeological reasons. Try to preserve and for knowledge. And Brendan Fraser's character is more, I'm doing this because the girl saved me from prison and I promised to take her to the temple so she can do her, like, she's more like Indiana Jones, if anything. She's looking for the knowledge, her brother's looking for riches, and he's just maybe looking for a little redemption. And I liked how when they ran into the American characters on the boat, the American characters were basically characters all the way to the end. They weren't just one-off randoms for some scene. Like, they were actually integral. Like, oh, we meet these characters going to the same place, and oh, what do you know? They actually ended up in the same place. Now we have to dig alongside each other. Stuff like that. I feel like most movies would have just dropped them. Like, oh, they never got there. One of the antagonists, Benny, he was a hilarious foil for Brendan Fraser. He's just constantly switching sides.
He throws the chair at him.
Yeah. He's just
How
switching
does he throw
sides.
that chair so casually?
I know. So he just picks it up and whips it at him. It's great. Special effects, I think, are Well, I mean, some of them look better than effects do today. For 25
Yeah.
years old, it's a little bit dated, but it's still very impressive 25 years later on a big screen blown up. The action's still really well done. It's, wide shots. Mostly you can see what's happening. Brendan Fraser looks badass doing it. The production value, the sets were grand in scope, and like the gold and the lost temples and everything. The plot was pretty tight too. It was cool. It's a good adventure movie. What more can you ask for it? They're looking for the ancient treasures. There's ghosts, there's supernatural stuff, there's good character work. The characters have strong motivations. They're going for a quest, and consequences arise from going after said treasure. It's good stuff. It's
Nice.
a movie that knows what it is. It's staying in its pocket. It's not trying to be some kind of artistic masterpiece. It's just trying to be really good for its pocket, and it is. So that needs respect.
It's a fun movie. I like that one a lot.
Yeah. And I think that most people do. I don't know anyone who doesn't like The Mummy.
I think you're on the wrong side of the river. I think that's that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the...
Brendan Fraser's so good in those movies.
Yeah.
It's funny, like that trilogy, because I remember seeing like the Rise of the Dragon Emperor, I think in theaters or at home, and it's weird like watching them all back to back, because the first two are clearly shot on film, and then the next one is clearly shot on like a digital camera with like digital, and it just looks weird. Like it's not like it's so strange of how like it's not going from Indiana Jones 3 to 4, how it's like, oh, the color grading matches or whatever. It looks so different. It's really strange.
I'm probably going to give him a rewatch.
Also, in the third one, the Rachel Weisz got recasted because I think her schedule couldn't line up with the Dragon Emperor, so she's not in the third one, which kind of sucks. But
Aww.
I know.
I thought I remembered her not being in the mall, but
she's in the second one.
That's good. So what you got?
Well, finally did it after putting it off for so long. I have started completing my watch through of Batman animated series.
Back on that.
I accidentally started rewatching episodes that I thought I didn't watch before. I rewatched the Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy episode because either I think I fell asleep during it or was distracted by it. Rewatched that one, was reminded, hey, it's a really good episode with both Joker and everything. And then I kind of just did like a skip through because I was really lost. I couldn't remember. And then there was like the Batgirl episodes that showed up. I don't know if I brought this up last time. I don't like the voice actor for Batgirl. She sounds like an older woman instead of a teenager. But hey, it's, they can't all be, Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
And then I finally went through to like the new ones where like the first new one I watched was when Batman's fighting a guy who thinks he's Zeus. That was a really funny, campy one. There's the one where Scarface shows up. The puppet like mob boss who is the ventriloquist who's got like bipolar disorder. Yeah. Then which was funny in the disc version, this is finally the end of season 1, which is like the 65th episode. Is the one where Batman is fighting like the Mayan it's not even a Mayan guy, it's like a guy who's using like control hypnosis chips I don't want to reveal who's the actual bad guy, but it's a good episode as well. And then after that went on to season 2, which is weird because I don't even know, because like the history of the show, it's like, and even in the box set it says like season 3 they've merged the new adventures of Batman and Robin into it as season 3, but it's technically season 4 or something. For like the whole thing.
I thought season 4 was the new Batman adventures. Like there's
There's
the adventures of Batman and Robin, and then there's the one when they changed all the character designs, I thought that was season 4.
that is what it is, but it's like it's weird because like the internet and the box set has like merged them into season 3, just for instead of like calling it a separate thing. It's really weird. It's like a Breaking Bad thing, right? Where people were like season 6 and 7 are merged together. I don't even remember anymore, man. It's like a Mandela effect type of thing going on, but it's not at the same time. But yeah, season 2 starts off with,
or like The Sopranos. It's like season 6
yeah,
A
like
and B,
that.
even though it's kind of season 7.
Yeah. But season 2 started off with Crocodile almost joining like a circus freak people. And it's weird because I think you can tell that there's like a huge budget increase in the animation from the start of this season. Like they given a little bit more pencil mileage, or just I've noticed that. And that's a really good episode. Especially the opening where it's Batman chasing Croc through the woods. And there's like no music too, and there's so much tension. And then this next one, it's kind of become one of my personal favorites. It's a Bullet for Bullock. It's the one where Batman and Harvey Bullock team up, and it's kind of like a neo-noir type thing because it follows Bullock more than Batman. And it's just these two guys who don't like each other, and someone's trying to kill Harvey Bullock. And I immediately guessed who it was right away, but it's still a great episode. Yeah, it's a fun one. Next up on my list I see here is Trial, which I know what that is. I'm not going to spoil it here, but yeah, that's going to be a fun one. I'm happy I'm getting back into the series because it's a great series and I need to finish it. It's been on my watch list for ever. So, yeah.
Long time. Well, I'm glad you're back onto that. I was scrolling through Amazon Prime and I'm like, well, I pick my movies on streaming like I pick my books lately, where I kind of just, for my books, I'm just picking random ones out of a box. And okay, whatever, here's what this is. My streaming list, I just scroll to the bottom and I'm like, what have I put on my watch list forever ago that I should watch now? And I settled on Fist of Fury. Old Bruce Lee movie from the early 70s, because I'd heard of it. Like, sure, what's Fist of Fury about? Fist of Fury is okay. It kind of threw me off immediately when... So Bruce Lee's teacher is murdered. He gets poisoned, but none of the students know that. They just think he died. So the scene 1 starts with them burying the teacher, and Bruce Lee's like crying at the grave, like he's trying to dig the teacher up out of the grave as they're burying him. It's weird. I was immediately like, okay. I don't get it. Like I was in martial arts, and you know my teacher was good, but I'm not like that. And yeah, it got better as it went, but it was still, I feel like, too long for what it was. It was just like, the whole thing took place in this neighborhood where like he finds out somebody did try to kill his teacher. So then he starts like committing murders around the neighborhood from this rival karate school, or just, I don't know if they were karate, but they were a rival dojo who did it. And he's just like killing some of their leadership until he can get his way to their boss who put the hit out. But what's interesting about that movie are the themes of intolerance against minorities, because where this movie's set, the Japanese are the predominant society and the Chinese are basically in this it's basically a little Chinatown area with its own distinct culture, but the Chinese authorities treat them like dirt. There's a sign on the parks that are like, no dogs are Chinese. Just stuff like that. That this is what they have to deal with in their neighborhood. And Bruce Lee's kind of become the champion for the Chinese people in the neighborhood, standing up against the Japanese oppressors, which is a part of history I don't really know so much about. So it's kind of cool to see, oh, so this is a tension I'm not super familiar with. Like I've heard a bit about that, Japanese versus Chinese, but not a story I'm overly familiar. So kind of interesting to see in a context like this. I don't know how accurate it is to real life, but the action is fantastic. Bruce Lee is everything they say is. The martial arts scenes are the price of admission. The story and the acting are, it's fine. It's fine, but the martial arts is really spectacular 50 years later still. I recommend it just for those scenes, if anything. So the other day, I finally finished The Bear, Season 2. Took me long enough, but... So The Bear Season 2 was interesting because I started it and I'm like, oh, okay, so Season 2 is they're building the restaurant. Pfft, yeah, that's going to last like half the season, right? And then they're going to get back to, oh, it's still going. Oh, it's still this, they're not going to open it all this season, are they? Wow. Okay. And yeah, that was the entire season. I thought that was so ballsy. The whole first season's just them trying to make their restaurant work as best as possible. And then all of Season 2, they don't even cook. Really? It's all the behind the scenes of getting a restaurant certified and ready for reopening or grand opening, more like. And all the behind the scenes of the business, all the planning they have to do, all the training and recertifications. Season 1 was about what's it like to work in a restaurant, but Season 2 is all about what's it take to open a restaurant, which I thought was brilliant because I was expecting more of the same, really. And then they took it in a completely different direction. And because they separated all the main cast, they got to explore all their stories more individually. And there's a line this season which Justin and I have just been quoting left, right, and center because we thought it was great. It was Richie's just random. I'm not like this because I'm in Van Halen. I'm in Van Halen because I'm like this.
At first, I thought you were talking about the Taylor Swift line. It was like, honey, I like Taylor Swift, but sometimes I need a break.
But yeah, that's good. That's good too. But the Van Halen one, we've been quoting all the time lately. It's just so random. It's so good. Everything Richie says makes us laugh our asses off. He's fantastic. Richie
is the best character. One of the best characters in the show, especially after the Forks episode.
The Forks episode was spectacular.
Loved it. I love that episode so much.
It was, in Season 1, I'm like, yeah, I mean, this show is so stressful. How can they get more stressful? Forks. It's one of the most stressful episodes of TV I've ever seen. It's painful.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could watch it again. It hurts.
It's like there's that episode, and then right after is the fucking family dinner episode, I think, which is even more stressful.
There was actually a couple.
Or like one after that. Yeah. It's insane. It's insanity.
I don't like Sydney though, and maybe that's just because I relate to her too much. I feel like if I was a character on the show, I'd be Sydney. But I'm also like,
yeah, it's weird because
she's infuriating because she's like when Carmi messes up, he owns it. He says, okay, I'm a screw up. I'm being unreliable. I'm sorry. I own it. But when Sydney messes up, it's never her fault. She always finds somebody else to blame.
Especially Carmi.
Yeah, and it pisses me off because she's just so, like, she's imperfect, and that's fine. She's a flawed person. But it's just, when everyone else is having a problem with her, it's not her fault. But her problems are always valid, no matter what.
Yeah, it's like her problems, like, sort of, like, overtake everybody else's that's what I remember from season 2. I was like, I don't like Sydney in this season, and I don't like
haven't liked
that they're
her-
sort of trying to push like a Carmi and Sydney relationship almost subtly. I'm like, I don't like seeing that. I don't want to see that. Love the actress. I think she's incredible. She won a Golden Globe and I think an Emmy.
No, she's great.
An Emmy as well. Yeah, she's
great, but the
fantastic. I
characters-
just didn't like her in this season personally with her story.
I think she's consistent though. What I'll say is I don't think they write Sydney badly by any stretch. They write her well. I haven't liked the character since her meltdown in season 1 when she made everything Carmi's fault. Like, okay. And I like how they referenced it this season where like Carmi was a little bitch who smacked the donut on the floor. But that was like, okay, they finally made Carmi freak out in season 1. But she still had an inappropriate meltdown there, and I haven't really liked her since. Because I'm like, everything you're getting mad about was your fault. And you're taking it out on everybody else, and I'm like, okay, that's who you are. I get it. I really like Marcus this season.
Yeah, he was great too. I loved his episode as well when he went off to where'd he go to? Denmark, yeah, and he met up with Will Poulter there. That was a good episode too.
That was a great scene.
I was especially excited for you to watch this season because of the dinner episode, because I think it's just great acting. Yeah. But also because of Jillian Jacobs. I was like, oh, he's gonna freak out. Community alumni.
I was very happy to see her.
Her and Richie's chemistry is like, this is a couple that's been together for years, or at least a while. Like they're just both so good with each other. Yeah.
Yeah. The Bear is an extremely well written show. It's one of the best written shows I've seen on TV in a long time. The dialogue's exceptional. The acting's great. I like the look of it too. It's very claustrophobic and like it makes stressful. Me, just for a show set in a restaurant, I have more suspense watching that than I do action shows or most dramas. Like the show makes me laugh. It makes me cringe. It makes me terrified. It
makes me feel
characters.
Things.
It makes me feel all the things.
Yeah. It made me so uncomfortable with how real that whole dinner meltdown was. And it was really funny. The time I had watched season 2 of The Bear was when the whole, when the Oscars for last year came out, when Jamie Lee Curtis won. Mm-hmm. So then I was like a little bit mad at the Oscars for doing it. And then I watched her in The Bear and I was like, oh, I fully forgive. I'm just going to associate her Oscar win to this role for some reason. Because she just played the best, like, alcoholic parent who like clearly needs help and is trying to help herself but like can snap like that. Like she did it fucking perfectly. My favorite
bit of that episode was the sound design in the background. Like there was a scene that I can remember where Carmi and what's John Bernthal's character's name again? Michael.
Michael, yeah.
Michael, where Carmi and Michael were having a conversation by the pantry, and then like minutely in the background, you can hear the timer go off, and the mom have a freak out in the background as they're talking. You're like,
it's so good.
Yeah, so they're being consistent about the geography, like the timer going off, you can hear the freak out. It's great. Like that's still happening. Yeah. It's not ignored.
Oh, I was gonna talk. Oh man, I was gonna do a spoiler for the end of the season, but never mind. I'll just say I didn't like personally, but like as a story, it kind of like Carmi's final blow up at the end.
That was
and
forced.
Who heard it? Like that felt wrong.
That was forced.
Like
yeah.
Like that was like okay. That? So here's here's all this character development gone. Is like. What made you think this way? Like it I don't know.
I get I get why you say it, like why you think that, but why did you say it that way?
Yeah. But what I loved was Richie telling him off, like right after.
Yeah.
It was like, why the fuck would you do that? So that's the part I did like, but yeah. I was just kind of like, well, why would you do like this person is perfect? Like, why why are you telling them off like that? I don't know. I don't know. That part felt a little forced, but the rest of the show is phenomenal.
So what's next for you?
I have one more thing, actually, and it'll be quick because we'll talk about it next week. Segue. Tales of the Empire came out May the 4th. Watched it all today. The Magistrate episodes, I could deal without. Not because they're bad episodes, because I don't care about the character. I don't know why they care about this character. She was somewhat cool in The Mandalorian. She kind of got wasted in Ahsoka, and now they're trying to force her in on Clone Wars stuff. I don't care about her. She was the second to least, important character in Ahsoka. The Barriss episodes, first one, loved it, amazing. Her second episode, I don't know what happened. Sixth episode, that's pretty cool. Ending is wild. So yeah, I won't talk more because Joe hasn't watched all of it. But yeah,
I watched the first episode and it was good. I'll refrain from more comment because
I'll say right off the bat, I preferred Tales of the Jedi.
Tales of the Jedi.
But that's because I don't think you can beat those Dooku episodes.
The Dooku trilogy is one of my favorite things Star Wars has done in a long time. On TV, anyway. But
what choice have I? Such a good line. I want that on a shirt with no context.
We will talk about it sooner than later. So this week I watched The Fall Guy in theaters. I did why do you stick your tongue out?
I don't know.
You seem so biased against this movie. Even when I told you I was seeing it last week, you're like, you had that reaction over text. Like I couldn't see your face, but that was the vibe I got.
It just looked stupid to me.
This?
I saw the whole movie in the 3-minute trailer that they did right before I saw the Challengers. I was like, okay, I've seen this movie now.
Probably.
I'm sure it's fun. It's Ryan Gosling in a comedy, so it's probably good.
It's Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. I love those two separately. I love them together. It's a romance, action, comedy. There's a little bit of everything in there. My favorite part about the movie, I think, is that I spent most of the movie watching these stunts, and I'm like, is that real? Is that real? But like, is that real? And then the very ending of the movie, during the credit roll, there's a video clip on the side of the credits that shows all the behind the scenes of the practical stunts.
That's awesome.
And that's like my jaw was on the floor for that. I'm like, yes, like all the stunts in this movie were practical. And like I see the behind the scenes footage and my mind is blown. I'm like, that validates the whole movie. Just that ending bit. Just them saying like, no, somebody actually did all this. So it's a great showcase for practical stunt work. It's a love letter to Hollywood stunt workers. And I recommend it just for the action. The romance bit is also cute. Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling have good chemistry. It's funny. It's like the comedy's mostly good. The plot itself was... My main problem with the plot is that I felt like the stakes were kind of low. Because the whole idea is he's a stuntman for this actor who goes missing. And the actor's manager is like, okay, well, you know him better than pretty much anybody else does, and no one will give a crap you're missing because you're if you go missing from set for a few days because you're the stuntman, whatever. So he basically is working on the movie by day and investigating the lead actor's disappearance by night. But the problem was the day sections. The day sections was when like the movie turned into a rom-com, but there was no stakes there because like the stuff he did trying to find the actor never really blended onto what was happening during the day. So it nearly felt like two different movies going on sometimes. Where I'm like, okay, so you have this cool action comedy for half the movie and you have like a rom-com for the other half of the movie, and the two sides rarely connect until like the very end. And I'm like, okay, I don't have a problem with the rom-com stuff. I don't have a problem with the action comedy stuff, but it feels weird they're both in the same movie. And they're just connected by Ryan Gosling, really. And the final twist was okay. It was pretty obvious, I thought. But by that point, I'm like, whatever. I'm just here for a good time. I'm not thinking too hard about it, but there's some funny meta commentary on the Hollywood film industry. Like one of my favorite bits was near the beginning of the movie when Ryan Gosling's on a plane and he's looking at the main act. He sees a magazine cover with the actor he stunt doubles for, and on the cover is the actor with the quote, "I do my own stunts." I'm like, yeah,
That's pretty good.
just the egos there. So my final one of the day is The Bad Batch, Season 3. The finale.
I haven't even seen season 2.
Yeah, I finished Season 2 a little bit before I watched Season 3. So I basically blurred Season 2 and 3 together. But Season 3, I'll start with the negatives. It's a little bit of a downgrade from Season 2. Season 2, I thought, got the episodic adventures more tight than ever. They were doing some really cool stuff, episode by episode. They introduced a great villain in Hemlock. The team was gelling even better than in Season 1. The writing was better. Everything was getting better. This season, the whole team split up right away, which was part of the point. Like, loss is the big theme of the season, because the entire team split apart and just fighting to hold on to whatever they have left is the idea, just that they can't let their losses beat them down. There's a lot of heavy themes this year. Crosshair's got PTSD. He can't even shoot straight because his hands are too shaky because of the torture he endured as a prisoner. Hemlock is still just a bastard of a villain. He tests on animals, tests on children, tests on prisoners, tests on whatever it takes to get his mad science experiments done. So he's a great villain still. And the plot starts out really strong and it ends, the finale is amazing. It's a very satisfying conclusion to the Bad Batch, and, like, to be frank, just the Clone Wars era in general. Because the Bad Batch isn't advertised this way, and a lot of people probably don't like to see it this way. But in my headcanon, it's basically Clone Wars Season 8, 9, and 10. It picks up right where Clone Wars...
like an epilogue of the Clone Wars, kind of.
It picks up right where the Clone Wars Season 7 ended off in Season 1. And by Season 3, based on the production design, the Empire is transitioning out of the Republic in equipment and armor and just general aesthetic. They become the Empire through this series. And the main thing I gotta say about this series, 2 points. CGI, best looking CGI I've ever seen on an animated show. I really think The Bad Batch is a testing vehicle for Disney to say, okay, we have like 14 episodes of a season here. And not the character models, mind you, those are meant to look more non-realistic, but the backgrounds, the starships, they look photorealistic. They look like you could drop them into a Star Wars movie. And I'm getting 14 episodes of half-hour content this year with that stuff that look better than most of the other Disney live action shows. And I'm like, how does that happen? This show is like it's a tech demo, and it's incredible. And I also watch it for the talents of D. Bradley Baker playing 3/4 of the main cast, and all of them are unique. He's just bantering with himself the entire show, and it's incredible. So it's a great tech demo, and it's a novelty for one guy just playing against himself.
I want to know what that man's paycheck is like. Because technically speaking, you're supposed to get paid in terms of like live action stuff. You're supposed to get paid for each different role you do. Like if you do a twin role, you get paid for both parts. So it's like double budget. I don't know if that's the same for animation. It's probably different, but like,
I feel like it is
the show. Like,
I feel like that's just the way animation's always been, though. Is you get a few talented people who play multiple characters. So,
yeah, probably not the same type of money as live action, but
yeah. So my
gets a bigger paycheck regardless.
That's why my favorite credit in the Bad Batch is the first one, D. Bradley Baker as the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Which one? He's the Bad Batch. He's all of them except Omega. That's Michelle Ang, and she's great. She's really transitioned Omega from innocent child to independent woman who can hold her own now. Still a child, still needs a bit of guidance, but like this is the season she finally gets to put her training to the test for her own survival. So
nice.
I think this season was a great closer. The middle was a little weak once it got off. Like the standalone episodes weren't as good as season 2, but the main plot was solid all around. Had a great ending. Production value is great. The Bad Batch is a show I've never thought was great. Ever since the beginning, all the way to the end, I never thought it was great. The Bad Batch has never been bad. It's always just been good. It's just consistently good from start to finish, which sometimes makes me forget about it, but I always enjoy it. So, and that's more than I can say for a lot of Star Wars the last 10 years, but...
I've only seen the first season. Even then, I was kind of like, this is all I can really muster right now. Like, I'll probably get around to watching season 2 and 3 because there's only that many seasons.
Season 2 is the best.
It's just never something I like was fully invested in, even from the start. Like, even when they were introduced in Clone Wars season 7, I was like, oh, this is a cool team. But to have a whole show around them, I was like, okay, sure. Yeah. And I will admit, the first episode of The Bad Batch, like very first one, is really good.
The pilot is incredible.
Yeah, the pilot's really good, but then it just kind of like teeters out for me personally.
The pilot's incredible. The finale is incredible. I love the ending because the ending you feel like can go any way until it finally ends. They actually set it up in a way where you're like, is the entire team just going to get decimated in this? And you don't know right to the end what happens to them. And it was well handled, I thought. So that's my leisure list, and that's your leisure list. And that's all for today.
All right.
Catch us in another 8 weeks for another one of these.
Mine will probably still be short. Joe's will be 57.
Mind you, okay, mind the record. This is just the stuff I finished. I'm watching and consuming more things, even.
Go outside.
Here's the short list of stuff I'm currently consuming. Golden Age Batman Volume 3, Golden Age Wonder Woman Omnibus, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel Season 3, The Adventures of Superman Radio, More of the Shadow, Assassin's Creed Origins DLC, The Crown Season 5, The Simpsons Season 12, Boardwalk Empire Season 1, Silicon Valley Season 5, Batman The Audio Adventure Season 2, X-Men The Animated Series Season 1, and the Lone Ranger audio dramas. That's what I'm currently consuming, and I'm not going to talk about them. I'm just listing.
Yeah, if I didn't include stuff I hadn't finished, my list would have been 4. So,
also, Critical Role.
All of it.
Still chip.
Yeah.
I just can't find a good
I
section
saw
to
a
talk
clip.
about it on this show.
I saw a funny clip of Critical Role. People like Travis said something like, or no, Sam said something. He's like, "We hear you guys, or you want to know where Vox Machina is. You guys want to know where Mighty Nine is. We're telling you, we hear you and thank you." And he just goes back to like, he says it almost as like a joke of like, and we can't say anything. But all they said is that they're actively working on both.
But
So
I want it.
I know.
Truth be
Anyway.
told, I don't care about the Mighty Nine. I haven't listened to that campaign. I've got no attachment to Mighty Nine, but give me more Vox Machina.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Gimme.
Patiently.
Season
also,
3.
Season 6 of Cobra Kai got announced a couple days ago.
Finally.
Listen to this. 3-part event. So the first part, 15 episodes. First part,
15.
July 18th.
Holy crap.
Yeah. First part 1, July 18th. Second part, November 28th. Third part, sometime next year.
So it's 15 episodes divided by 3 parts?
Yes.
Or okay. I'm like, part 1 is 15 episodes? What the?
No.
Wow.
I don't like them doing that, to be honest, but whatever.
Netflix gonna Netflix.
How do we draw out our franchises that are dying so we can get that streaming money? Anyway. All right.
Why are you gonna do Cobra Kai like that? It's your last, like, Netflix shows never get 6 seasons.
No.
That's crazy.
Season 6, part B, C. I don't know. My brain's dead.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, you can find me at Ryan Walker Official on YouTube, TikTok, and or on Instagram.
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Thought Plane Media. Also, check out the Close Up with Ryan and Joe Facebook page for latest updates on the show. If you listen to us in audio, check out our YouTube channel. And if you're on YouTube, find us anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. We hope to see you on the next Close Up with Ryan and Joe, which will probably be Tales of the Empire. Nervous smile. Till next time.
Take care.